The stuffed rabbit disappeared first. From the Chen family home, little Sophie had left it on the bedroom windowsill. And by dawn it was gone. Her parents bought her a new toy and forgot about it. Then the Miller family lost a cloth doll. The Santos family lost a teddy bear. The Wei family lost 3 stuffed animals in one night. Within 2 weeks, 15 families reported missing toys. Always soft ones, always at night, never anything else. David Walsh reviewed the security footage for the 3rd time that week. The images were grainy and dark, but unmistakable. Something large and winged swooped down from the mountains, grabbed items from yards and porches, then vanished. The creature moved too fast for clear details, but its size was terrifying. The wingspan had to be at least 20 feet. He called an emergency meeting. 40 families lived on Vila 7 farming valleys and mining mountains. They had been here 3 years without major problems. Local wildlife mostly avoided humans. This was different. Nina Foster arrived late, still wearing her field gear. She had been studying the planet's ecosystem for 2 years, cataloging species and monitoring changes. At 28, she was the youngest council member and often the most outspoken. David activated the projection screen. The security footage played in slow motion. Parents gasped. The creature's body was serpentine and covered in scales that reflected moonlight. Its wings were leathery and powerful. Its tail was as long as its body. We are calling it a dragon because, frankly, that's what it looks like, David said. I'm organizing a hunting party. We can't let this thing keep coming into our colony. Next time it might take more than toys. Several men nodded in agreement. Nina stood up. Has it hurt anyone? She asked. Not yet, David replied, but we can't wait until it does. It's only taking toys, soft toys. Specifically, look at the list. Nina pulled up her data pad. Stuffed animals, cloth dolls, pillows, blankets. Nothing electronic, nothing valuable. Nothing that would suggest it's looking for food or resources. So what's your point? David asked. My point is that we should study its behavior before we kill it. This creature is clearly intelligent. It's selecting specific items for a reason. Maybe it's trying to build a nest. Maybe it's collecting materials. We don't know enough about Vila 7's apex predators. Yet, it's stealing from our children, Mother said from the back row. I understand that, Nina said. I'm not saying we do nothing. I'm saying we learn what it wants before we assume it's a threat. The council argued for another hour. Finally, they reached a compromise. Nina would have 1 week to track the creature and determine its intentions. If she found evidence of danger, the hunting party would proceed. If not, they would reassess. Nina spent 2 days preparing. She studied the theft patterns and mapped the flight path. Every incident occurred between midnight and dawn. The creature always approached from the eastern mountains. On the 3rd night, Nina set up her trap. She placed a large teddy bear in the colony's central courtyard. Inside the bear, she hid a tracking beacon. Then she waited on a rooftop with recording equipment. The creature arrived at 2:00 in the morning. Nina held her breath. Its scales were deep blue, almost black, shimmering with iridescence. Its eyes glowed amber in the darkness. Its movements were graceful despite its size. The dragon landed softly and approached the teddy bear. It sniffed carefully, then picked it up gently in its mouth. For a moment it looked directly at Nina's hiding spot. She froze. Those eyes were too intelligent. This was no simple animal. Then the dragon spread its wings and launched into the sky. Nina tracked its flight on her monitor. The beacon signal was strong. The creature flew east into the canyon systems, deeper than any colonist had explored. Nina ran to her transport vehicle. She loaded supplies and checked her emergency beacon. David had made her promise to check in every 6 hours. If she missed one, he would send the hunting party. She drove through the night following the signal. The canyons were dark and narrow, carved by ancient rivers. The walls rose hundreds of feet on either side. Nina's headlights cut through the darkness. The beacon stopped moving. Nina checked her coordinates. The creature had traveled 30 miles into the canyon system. She parked and continued on foot with her backpack and scanning equipment. The canyon opened into a wider valley. Nina saw the cave entrance immediately. It was massive, easily 50 feet high. The tracking signal came from inside. Nina approached slowly, her heart pounding. She activated her headlamp and stepped into the darkness. The cave was deeper than she expected, stretching back into the mountain, and then she saw them. Toys, hundreds of toys, maybe thousands. They covered the cave floor in organized piles. Stuffed animals, dolls, blankets, pillows, all arranged carefully, almost lovingly. A low rumble echoed through the cave. Nina spun around and saw the dragon blocking the entrance, its amber eyes fixed on her. It didn't attack. Instead, it moved to the side, positioning itself between Nina and something deeper in the cave. Nina heard a sound, soft and weak. Whimper. She took a step forward. The dragon growled but didn't advance. Nina raised her hand, slowly, showing she was unarmed. She took another step. Behind the dragon, curled up in a nest of stolen toys, were 3 small creatures, baby dragons, hatchlings, and they were dying. Nina understood everything in that moment. The mother wasn't stealing. She was trying to save her children. Nina approached slowly, her headlamp cutting through the darkness. The cave floor was covered in toys. Hundreds of them, stuffed animals, dolls, blankets, pillows, all arranged in careful piles, organized by size and type. A low rumble echoed through the cave. The dragon stood at the entrance, blocking the light, its amber eyes fixed on her. It moved sideways, positioning itself between Nina and something deeper inside. Nina heard a soft whimper. She raised her hand slowly. The dragon watched but didn't advance. Nina took one step forward. The dragon growled, shaking the cave walls. She stopped. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," Nina said quietly. The dragon tilted its head, then it lowered its massive body to the ground, still blocking her path but no longer aggressive. Nina took another step, then another. Dragon watched every movement but remained still. Finally, Nina could see past its enormous form. 3 small dragons lay curled in a nest, made entirely of stolen toys. They were no bigger than large dogs, their scales dull and lifeless. Where the mother's scales shimmered blue, theirs looked gray and thin. Their breathing was shallow. One clutched a teddy bear to its chest. Another had wrapped itself in a small blanket. Nina felt tears in her eyes. The mother wasn't stealing for herself. She was trying to comfort her dying children. Nina slowly sat cross-legged on the ground. She pulled her medical scanner From her backpack, the mother dragon. Tense but didn't stop her, Nina activated the device and pointed it toward the hatchlings. The scanner beeped softly. Nina watched. The readings, vital signs weak, body temperature low, bone density severely compromised. The scanner analyzed their cellular structure. Then Nina saw the problem: mineral deficiency, severe and comprehensive. The hatchlings weren't getting nutrients they needed, their bodies were breaking down. Nina pulled up geological data for Vila 7. The canyons were rich in common elements but lacked several rare trace minerals. She cross-referenced the scanner data. The hatchlings needed elements that didn't exist in sufficient quantities on this planet. The mother dragon was strong, adapted to harsh conditions, but these hatchlings were the first generation born on Vila 7. They were dying because the world couldn't sustain them. The mother dragon made a soft sound. Nina met her eyes. I understand now, Nina said. You're trying to make them comfortable. Toys are soft and warm. The dragon blinked slowly. Nina saw intelligence in those amber eyes. Pain, too. Nina checked her chronometer. 4 hours had passed. She needed to report in soon, or David would send the hunting party. But she needed more information first. She spent the next hour scanning everything. The mother dragon eventually relaxed and moved away from the entrance. She settled next to her hatchlings, grooming them gently. The babies made soft chirping sounds. Nina discovered the mother had been collecting more than toys. Deep in the cave were piles of rocks and minerals. The dragon had been trying to find the right elements, but nothing on this planet worked. Nina sent her report to David through her communicator. The creature wasn't a threat, it was a mother trying to save her children. She needed more time. David's response came quickly. He would hold off the hunting party, but the council wanted answers. Nina didn't have all the answers yet, but she knew one thing: humanity had colonized Vila 7 3 years ago. The mining operations had extracted thousands of tons of minerals. If those rare elements existed anywhere, humans might have taken them. One hatchling opened its eyes and watched her. Its gaze was curious but weak. It clutched its teddy bear tighter. Nina made a decision. She would save these hatchlings if she could, because they deserved to live, because their mother loved them, because humanity had the knowledge and resources to help. She stood up slowly and packed her equipment. The mother dragon watched her leave but didn't follow. Nina walked back through the canyon in the early morning light. Her mind raced with possibilities. The colony had medical facilities designed for human use, but the basic principles of biology applied across species. Mineral supplements could be synthesized, nutritional formulas could be developed. It would take time and resources, but it was possible. Nina reached her vehicle and drove back to the colony. David was waiting for her at the gates. Several other council members stood with him. They looked tired and worried. Well, David asked, what did you find? Nina pulled out her data pad and showed them everything: the images of the hatchlings, the scanner readings, the mineral analysis, the geological data. She explained it all in clear, simple terms. The mother isn't a threat, Nina concluded. She's desperate. Her children are dying because this planet can't support their biology. She's been taking toys to keep them comfortable. while they slowly waste away. One of the council members, an older woman named Ruth, wiped her eyes. Several others looked shaken. "What do you want to do?" David asked. Quietly, "I want to save them," Nina said. "I want to develop a treatment and give these hatchlings a chance to live. We have the technology, we have the knowledge, we can help." David was silent for a long moment, then he nodded. "Okay," he said, "let's try." The colony's medical bay buzzed with activity. Dr. Raymond Torres studied the biological data. He was the settlement's primary physician, trained in xenobiology. Nina had brought him everything about the hatchlings. "Their cellular structure is remarkable," Raymond said. "They process minerals at the molecular level. Without the right elements, their bodies can't build themselves properly." Nina leaned over his shoulder. "Can we synthesize what they need?" "Maybe. We have the equipment, but I'll need to run simulations first." David entered with 3 council members. They had called a special session to discuss Nina's proposal. "How long will treatment take?" David asked. "Weeks," Raymond said. "Maybe months. The hatchlings are severely malnourished." Ruth spoke up. "Will the mother let us near her children?" Nina thought about the dragon's amber eyes, the intelligence there. "She will if she understands we're trying to help," Nina said. "What happens when we show up with needles and medical equipment?" Another council member asked. "What happens if treatment hurts the hatchlings and they cry out?" The mother dragon was massive and powerful. If she decided humans were a threat, there would be no stopping her. "I'll go alone," Nina said. "Just me. With the medicine, no weapons. She trusted me once, she'll trust me again." David shook his head. "That's too dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous." Nina replied, "But it's the right thing to do. If our mining operations caused this problem, we have a responsibility to fix it." The council debated for 2 hours. Finally, they voted. The decision passed by a narrow margin. Nina would attempt treatment. Raymond would develop the supplement. The colony would provide resources. But there were conditions. Nina would carry an emergency beacon. A security team would remain on standby at the canyon entrance. Raymond worked for 3 days straight, running simulations and testing mineral combinations. Nina spent those days studying dragon behavior and preparing. On the 4th morning, Raymond called her to the medical bay. He held up a small vial of pale blue liquid. "This is it," he said, "but I'm basing this on cellular analysis. I've never treated this species before. There's risk involved." "There's more risk in doing nothing," Nina said. Raymond handed her a medical injector and scanner. "Start with small doses. Monitor their response carefully." Nina packed everything along with more toys. Dozens of families had donated their softest blankets and biggest stuffed animals. The drive to the canyon felt longer this time. David had insisted on coming to the entrance. He waited with the security team while Nina continued on foot. The cave entrance appeared ahead. Nina paused and took a deep breath. Then she stepped into the darkness. The mother dragon was waiting. She recognized Nina immediately and relaxed slightly, though she remained between Nina and the hatchlings. Nina lowered her bag and pulled out the largest stuffed animal first, a plush lion nearly 3 ft long. The dragon's eyes widened. Nina set it down and backed Away. The dragon approached and sniffed. Carefully, then she picked it up gently and carried it to her nest. The hatchling stirred, one reached out and pulled the lion close. Nina pulled out more toys, creating a pile. The mother dragon watched but didn't interfere. After emptying her bag of toys, Nina pulled out the medical equipment. The dragon's demeanor changed instantly. She lowered her head and growled. "It's medicine," Nina said softly, "for your children." The dragon didn't understand the words, but understood the tone. Nina held up the vial, then she slowly approached the nest. The mother dragon's growl deepened. Nina stopped. She needed to show what the medicine would do. Nina pricked her own finger and placed the blood on a testing strip. It changed color, showing mineral content. Then she placed a drop of the supplement on another strip. It showed a different pattern, richer in the minerals the hatchlings needed. The dragon watched intently. Her eyes moved between the strips, comparing. Nina approached the nest again. This time the dragon didn't growl. She remained tense, but allowed Nina to kneel beside the smallest hatchling. The little dragon was so weak it barely moved. Nina prepared the injector with the smallest dose. She placed her hand gently on the hatchling's side. Its scales were cold and rough. Nina could feel its heart beating slowly. She whispered soothing words, then she pressed the injector against its shoulder and released the medicine. The hatchling whimpered. The mother dragon lunged forward. Nina didn't move. She kept her hand on the hatchling, steady and calm. "It's okay," Nina said. The mother dragon stopped inches from Nina's face. Her hot breath washed over Nina's skin. Her teeth were as long as Nina's hand. But the hatchling had stopped whimpering. Its breathing steadied. Its scales began to regain a hint of color. The mother dragon noticed. She lowered her head and nuzzled her baby gently. Then she looked at Nina with something that might have been gratitude. Nina exhaled slowly. The first treatment was complete. 3 weeks passed in a steady rhythm. Every morning, Nina loaded her vehicle with medicine and toys. Every morning she drove to the canyon. Every morning the mother dragon waited at the cave entrance. The trust between them grew. The dragon learned to recognize the medical equipment. She no longer growled when Nina approached with the injector. She would move aside and let Nina work, watching carefully. The hatchlings improved day by day. Their scales regained color, shifting from dull gray to emerald green. Their eyes grew brighter. Their movements became stronger. They started playing with the toys, batting at stuffed animals and wrestling over blankets. Nina found herself looking forward to the visits. She would sit in the cave for hours after treatment, simply observing. The mother dragon began to relax. Sometimes she would bring Nina things, unusual stones or flowers from the canyon. Nina accepted each gift carefully. David visited once, bringing Raymond to check progress. The mother dragon was wary of additional humans, but allowed them entry when Nina vouched for them. Raymond ran scans and declared the treatment a success. "This is remarkable," Raymond said. "I've never seen recovery like this. Their cellular regeneration is incredible." The smallest hatchling, the one Nina had treated first, seemed particularly attached to her. It would waddle over whenever she arrived and chirp until she scratched behind its ears. Nina named it Spark in her head. One morning, Nina arrived to find the Mother dragon behaving strangely. She was making low, rumbling sounds and moving her head in patterns. Her scales flickered with light, bioluminescent patterns Nina had never seen before. Nina sat down and watched. The patterns seemed deliberate, almost like language. The dragon would create a sequence of lights, then pause as if waiting for response. Nina pulled out her recording equipment and documented everything. Over the next hour, she recorded dozens of different light patterns. Some were simple, just a few pulses. Others were complex, involving multiple colors and timings. That night, Nina studied the recordings. She ran them through analysis software. What she found amazed her. The light sequences weren't random, they followed rules like grammar. They conveyed information. The dragon was trying to communicate. Nina spent the next week learning the basics, certain patterns related to specific concepts. A quick blue flash meant danger, a slow green pulse meant safety, a rippling pattern meant the hatchlings. The dragon proved to be a patient teacher, repeating patterns until Nina understood. Nina couldn't produce the light patterns herself, but she could respond with gestures and sounds. Through these communications, Nina learned things she never could have discovered otherwise. The dragon showed her memories through the light patterns. She saw a world with purple skies and crystal mountains. She saw dozens of dragons flying together. She saw that world dying, its resources depleted, its dragons scattering to find new homes. The mother dragon had come to Vila 7, pregnant, hoping to find a world rich enough to support her young, but the planet was already damaged. The colonies' mining operations had simply finished what nature started. Nina shared this with the colony council. It changed everything. The dragons weren't invaders, they were refugees, just like the human colonists. The council voted to modify mining operations. Instead of simply extracting minerals, they would implement a restoration program. They would process minerals from asteroids and seed them back into Vila 7 soil. Eventually, the planet could support native dragon populations again. But there was another problem. The mother dragon was alone. Through the light patterns, she showed Nina her loneliness, her worry that even if her hatchlings survived, they would grow up isolated. Nina brought this to David. Together, they worked on a solution. The colony had long-range communication arrays. They could broadcast a message, a beacon, calling any surviving dragons to Vila 7. The colony would commit to restoring the planet and providing sanctuary. Not everyone agreed. Some colonists worried about attracting more dragons. But Ruth spoke up at the meeting. We came here looking for a better life. These dragons are doing the same thing. What we choose says everything about who we are. The vote passed. The beacon was activated. The message went out across the stars in light patterns. The dragon mother had helped Nina compose. It said, "Safe harbor, mineral-rich world. Community welcome." Nina didn't know if any dragons would receive the message, but at least they were trying. The day after the beacon activated, Nina arrived to find all 3 hatchlings waiting at the entrance. They were strong enough now to move freely. They chirped excitedly and ran circles around her legs. The mother dragon stood behind them, her scales pulsing with warm golden light. Nina had learned enough to understand the pattern. It meant gratitude. It meant family. It meant home. Nina knelt down and let the hatchlings climb on her. Spark perched on her shoulder, making happy sounds. The other two nestled against her sides. They were warm now, full of life. The mother dragon approached and lowered her massive head. Nina reached out and placed her hand on the dragon's snout. The scales were smooth and warm. The dragon's eyes closed. Nina thought about how far they had come, how close to tragedy, how easily fear could have won over compassion. But it hadn't. Humanity had chosen differently. They had chosen to help, to learn, to adapt. The hatchlings would grow strong. The beacon would call others, and Vila 7 would become what it was always meant to be, a place where life could thrive, regardless of where it came from. Nina smiled as Spark nuzzled her cheek. This was what humanity's future in the stars should look like, not conquest, but collaboration. One small dragon at a time. 6 months after the beacon activated, nothing happened. No dragons answered. Nina continued her daily visits, but the mother dragon's light patterns grew dimmer. The hatchlings were nearly full-grown, now each as large as a horse. Their scales gleamed bright green, and they could fly short distances, but Nina could see the problem developing. Spark and his siblings competed for territory. Without other dragons, they had no social structure. They needed a community. The mother dragon showed Nina memories. Through light patterns, young dragons learned to hunt by watching elders. They learned to navigate by following migration routes. They found mates through elaborate flight displays. Without these things, the hatchlings would survive but never thrive. Nina reported this to the council. The restoration program was working, but it didn't matter if there were no other dragons to benefit. Then, on a cold morning in the 7th month, the colony's sensors detected something unusual. An object was approaching Vila 7 from deep space. It was moving with purpose. David called Nina immediately. Get to the communications center. Nina arrived to find the technical team gathered around sensor displays. The object was 3 days out. It was biological, massive, sending signals. Response to their beacon. Light patterns. Nina's hands shook as she translated. Coming home, are we welcome? Nina responded, yes, safe harbor. Family waits. The response came faster, not alone. Many come. The colony prepared. David organized work crews. Ruth coordinated families. Raymond prepared medical supplies. Nina drove to the canyon. She found the mother dragon at the cave entrance. Staring at the sky, the dragon's scales pulsed rapidly. The dragon knew, across vast distance. She had sensed her own kind. The hatchlings emerged, drawn by their mother's excitement. They looked to the sky, searching. 3 days later, the sky filled with wings. They came in groups. Some were massive, older than the colony. Others were young, barely larger than the hatchlings. They circled the canyon. Ancient patterns. The mother dragon launched into the sky, her hatchlings following. The colony watched as the dragons performed greeting rituals. They touched wings, crossed flight paths, created spirals of light. One dragon, larger than the others with deep purple scales, descended toward the colony. Nina stepped forward. David stood beside her. The purple dragon landed with surprising grace. Up close, Nina could see scars along its flanks. This dragon had lived a hard life, but its eyes were kind. The dragon's scales pulsed with light. Patterns, Nina translated. I am Elder Wing, the beacon brought us. Together many heard, many came, we thank the small ones who saved the young. Nina responded with hand signals, we are honored. Vila 7 is healing, there is space for all. The elder's scales flickered in approval, the young female who tends the mother. You speak our patterns. Well, the mother taught me, Nina said. All mothers are wise, the elder replied, especially those who trust strange beings with their children. Over the next weeks, the dragons settled into Vila 7. They claimed territories throughout the canyon systems. They were cautious around the colony at first, but the mother dragon vouched for the humans. Her hatchlings played near the settlement, and slowly other dragons joined them. Children from the colony watched with wonder. Parents who had once feared the creatures now brought toys to leave as gifts. The dragons accepted them, adding them to their nests. Nina worked with the elders to develop a sustainable system. The dragons would help protect the canyons from dangerous wildlife. In return, the colony would continue the restoration program and provide medical care. It was a partnership, not dominance. Raymond trained other colonists in dragon medicine. David organized a joint council with dragon elders to handle disputes. Ruth started a cultural exchange program. The transformation was profound. Vila 7 was no longer just a human colony. It was a shared world. Nina still visited the cave every day. The mother dragon had moved to a larger cavern, but she always made time for Nina. The hatchlings, now fully grown, had found mates among the newcomers. Spark had bonded with a young dragon, and they were expecting their own hatchlings soon. One evening, Nina sat at the cave entrance with the mother dragon watching the sunset. The sky was filled with dragons now, their silhouettes graceful against the orange clouds. The mother dragon scales pulsed. Thank you. Nina touched the dragon's side. You saved them first. You never gave up. I just helped. The dragon's next pattern was complex. You showed us that different worlds can share the same sky, that kindness transcends species, that hope is worth fighting for. Nina looked out at the colony below. Human children played while young dragons soared overhead. Families of both species shared the valley. This was humanity's greatest achievement, not the technology they brought, not the mining operations or settlement, but the choice to extend compassion to a species they didn't understand, the choice to help instead of harm. The mother dragon made a soft sound. She was looking at something in the cave. Nina followed her gaze and saw the original nest still intact. The stolen toys were arranged carefully, preserved like treasures. Will you keep them? Nina asked. The dragon's scales glowed warmly. Always. They remind us that love takes many forms, that what seems like theft can be desperation, that what seems like weakness can be strength. The sun dipped below the horizon. Dragons returned to their caves. Human children were called home, and Nina sat beside a dragon mother watching the stars emerge. Two different species, one shared world, one future built on understanding. It had started with stolen toys and a mother's desperate love. It had grown into something neither species could have built alone. 2 years had passed since the dragons returned. The canyon systems were alive with activity. Young dragons practiced flying while their elders supervised. Human children watched from safe distances pointing excitedly. Nina walked through the settlement with a smile. What had once been a nervous frontier colony now felt like home. Dragon and human families coexisted peacefully. She carried supplies toward the eastern canyon. Today was special. Spark's mate had laid eggs 3 months ago, and they were due to hatch. Nina had been invited to witness the event. The mother dragon met her at the familiar cave entrance. Her scales had regained their full brilliance. She greeted Nina, "Welcome, friend, sister." Nina used her light response device. "Honored to be here." Inside, Spark and his mate waited nervously by their nest. The eggs gleamed like polished gemstones. Spark chirped when he saw Nina. Several elder dragons were present, including Elder Wing. They had come to witness the first generation born on a restored Vela 7. Nina sat quietly. The mother dragon settled beside her. The first egg began to crack. Everyone fell silent. A tiny dragon pushed its way free. Its scales were bright yellow. It looked around with wide eyes. Spark and his mate immediately began cleaning their hatchling. The baby chirped back. The second egg hatched 10 minutes later. Then the third, 3 healthy hatchlings, all strong and alert. Nina checked her medical scanner. Perfect mineral content. These dragons would thrive. Elder Wing scales pulsed with deep satisfaction. The elder approached Nina. "You saved more than 3 hatchlings that day. You saved our future." Nina shook her head. "We all saved each other. Your species taught us compassion." The celebration lasted into the night. Dragons from across the canyon systems came to see the new hatchlings. Human colonists gathered at the canyon entrance, bringing gifts of soft toys and blankets. David arrived with the colony council. Ruth brought her grandchildren. Raymond documented everything. The settlement had grown beyond its original 40 families. More humans had arrived, drawn by reports of the unique partnership. But the colony carefully controlled its growth. The Joint Council made all major decisions together. They had established rules to protect dragon breeding grounds and human settlements. Mining operations were strictly regulated to ensure continued mineral restoration. As the sun set, Nina found herself alone with the mother dragon. They sat at the cave entrance looking out over the valley. The landscape had changed dramatically. Where once there had been bare rock, now plants grew. Your children will never know the hunger mine did, the mother dragon communicated. The world provides for them now. Nina nodded. And my people will never forget what we learned from you, that strength isn't always about power, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. The dragon's scales shimmered with warm light. What will you do now, friend? Sister, your work here is complete. Nina had thought about this question often. The colony wanted her to stay as liaison. Other worlds had heard about Vela 7 and wanted to learn from their example. She could travel, teach others. But sitting here, watching dragon hatchlings play while human children laughed nearby, Nina knew her answer. "I think I'll stay," she said. "This is my home now. These are my people, both species." The mother dragon made a sound that might have been laughter. "Good, Sparks. Hatchlings will need an aunt who can teach them about the strange small ones who bring soft toys." Nina smiled. She reached out and placed her hand on the dragon's scales, feeling the warmth and strength there. 2 years Ago she had been terrified approaching this cave. Now it felt like visiting family. In the valley below, a young human girl waved at a dragon flying overhead. The dragon dipped its wing in acknowledgement. A human farmer shared his water supply with a dragon who had helped chase predators from his fields. An elder dragon taught colonists the ancient light language. This was what the future could look like, not humans conquering the stars alone, but humans joining the greater community of intelligent species, learning from each other, growing together. Nina thought about all the colonies scattered across the galaxy. How many had encountered alien life and responded with fear? How many opportunities for partnership had been lost? Vila 7 had been lucky, or maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe it was the choice of one desperate mother who decided to trust one young scientist who chose compassion over caution, a community that voted to help instead of harm. Whatever it was, it had worked, and the proof played in the caves around her. Dragon hatchlings with full bellies and bright futures, human children who would grow up knowing the universe was bigger and more wonderful than any one species. The mother dragon stood and stretched her wings. She looked at Nina one more time, her scales pulsing with a pattern that needed no translation. Love, gratitude, home. Nina pulsed her device in response. The same pattern, the same meaning. They walked together back into the cave, where Spark's family celebrated, where toys and treasures mingled in nests, where two species had found common ground. The stars emerged in the darkening sky. Above Vila 7, somewhere out there, other worlds were making their own choices about how to treat alien life. Some would choose fear, some would choose violence. But here on this small planet in a distant canyon, dragons and humans had chosen differently. They had chosen each other. And in that choice they had built something that would last for generations, not a monument or a station or an empire. Just a simple truth, proven real through action, that the greatest strength of any species is its ability to extend kindness to those who are different. The dragon stole toys but never played with them. The reason was heartbreaking, but the ending was beautiful.